Welcome to chapter 3 of the book of Lamentations. Begins, I am a man, seeing poorness by a rod of his rage upon me. I am a man. Who is this man? The beginning, it says that Jeremiah wrote this. So the only other person I could think it could possibly be referring to is Jesus, but there are too many things in this chapter that shows that it wouldn't be Jesus, but that it would be Jeremiah. The other possibility would be the personification of Israel, but I don't think it would use I am a man in that way, or I would say something, I was as a man, maybe. So Jeremiah is the man that I see, and we'll bring all these places out that Jeremiah mentions having something similar occurring to him that is in the book of Jeremiah itself. So I am a man seeing poorness by a rod of his rage. The rod is a reed rod. It's a reed where they carried it. The shepherds used a rod to poke and prod the sheep, and a rod was used by a person of high authority, like a general, that they would have the rod, the authority, and it was also a instrument for measuring. It talks about that in the 40th chapter of Ezekiel, about the man having the reed, the rod in his hand. So here it's a use for punishment, rage upon me. Now, there's no mention any place in Jeremiah or Jesus of having a rod laid on them. So right here, it doesn't really tell us a whole lot, but except that a rod of his rage could be an allegory of the rage or the rod upon Israel, which is used in the book of Revelation, I believe, or other places. And he took me. He led me away into darkness and not light. In Jeremiah 51:34, it says, he devoured me. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, portioned me. A fine darkness overtook me. So there is Jeremiah having this darkness overtaking him. Only against me he turned his hand the entire day. So it was a continuous feeling of having the rage of God poured out on one's self. Be a terrible place to have God's rage. It's hard enough in life daily, just going through the daily routines that we have. We always, seems like every day has something new, sometimes good things, sometimes bad, always something to do. I can't imagine going through a day without having something to do, especially having the Bible studies and the Bibles and so forth that I send out. Keeps me busy. But having the rage the entire day, boy. He aged my flesh and my skin, the derma and sarcophagus, the coffin with the dead flesh, and derma is dermitis, is derma for the skin. And he broke my ostea, my bones. Now, there's no place that's mentioned that Jesus' bones were broken, so that's one of the places that would leave out Jesus. But in Jeremiah 23:9, it says, in or among the prophets, my heart was broken. In me, all my bones were shaken. I became as a man being broken. So there again, Jeremiah, going through the rough time, feel like his bones were being broken, everything was going bad. He, as God, built against me and encircled my cephalic, my head, and troubled me. So it was going on around. troubles. In dark places he settled me as an eon of dead ones. That would be like the people in Hades, but here it's like a dead one of the eon. He settled me, was in a place as you may as well be dead as far as he was concerned. Pretty bad. He built against me, and I shall not come forth. He weighed down my brass chain. Again, somewhat like Hades, I would say, of having being put into a place of a prison, sort of, weighing down my brass chain. I believe it's a chain. Weighing down my brass wouldn't be money. Generally, the brass is used for either something made out of brass, a lot of times money, coinage. Yes, indeed, for though I shall cry out and yell, he shut out my prayer. It says in Jeremiah 11:14, and you, God says, do not pray for this people, and do not petition concerning them with the supplication and prayer. So here God is telling him not to pray. He blocked up, for indeed I shall yell out, he shut my prayer, exactly as he says there in Jeremiah 11:14. He blocked up my ways, and he obstructed my roads, and he disturbed me. Arctos, it's got the wrong font here. I switched it from one computer to another, and this one I guess doesn't have that font, but it's Arctos instead of Arcos. We get the Arctic comes from that. He is a bear lying in wait for me, as a lion in a secret place. Something dangerous is waiting for him, and what do? You don't know if it's going to pounce on you at any time. He pursued, I revolted, and he caused me to cease. He established me for being obliterated. And here it sounds like almost a personification of Israel, because Jeremiah kept on going. I don't know about him revolting. I'm not sure. The complaint possibly that he had, it could be talking about. And he caused me to cease, but I don't know where that would have been in Jeremiah. He stretched tight his toxon, the bow, and set up a stone target for me as the aim for an arrow. A scopone, a scope, comes from that word. So, wow, being set up a target for the arrow reminds me of I forgot the guy's name. He did all these cartoons, and oh gosh, it's a long time ago. He quit doing the cartoons. Gary something, but he had it was a deer that was going to visit his girlfriend and knocked on the door, and when the deer had a bullseye on its side, and the other deer said, "Wow, a bummer birthmark, Henry," and so the setting up a person as a target for the arrow, boy, that's really saying something. If God is setting us, well, that's what he felt. Now, whether God sets us up as a target for the arrows of evil ones, I guess he does, because we are allowed to be shot at as a test. And so I suppose that being a target is one way of putting it. He brought the poison from out of his quivers into my kidneys. And the toxin right up here is the bow. We have toxology of poisons, this chemistry of poisons, because they put that basically on the quivers. But somehow the bow became the derivative word. I became laughter to all my people. Their psalm for the entire day, in Jeremiah 20, verse 7, it says, you deceived, and another word is beguiled me, O Lord, and I was deceived or beguiled. You held and prevailed. I became for laughter. In Jeremiah 27. Their psalm for the entire day, singing, He filled me with bitterness. He intoxicated me with bile. And this part here reminded me of Jesus with the bile, but I don't think he took it. So, again, Jeremiah. And he knocked out my teeth by a small stone. And then in back there with the bile, though, it says in Jeremiah 9:15, I will feed them with distresses, and I will cause them to drink water of bile. So this is what was sent to the people of Israel. He fed me ashes and thrust away my soul from peace. Cyrene, comes from that, peace. I forgot good things. And I said, my victory perished. Nikos mu. Nikos, Nike, the god of victory, where we get the word Nike, the shoes. And I said, my victory perished, even my hope from the Lord. I remembered because of my poorness and from out of my persecution, of my bitterness and of my bile. They remembered this. Now, this waiting on the Lord maybe should have been here on 20. It says, I shall be remembered, and my soul shall converse with me. This I will arrange into my heart. On account of this, I will wait. So now, going a litany of all the things that God is doing that are on the negative side, bad things for him. But what is he going to do? Strike out against God? Walk away? Sometimes we'd like to do that if we're going through a hard time, blaming God. But he says, the mercies of the Lord, for they finish not. God's mercies, we get them every day. We have mercy. For his charities failed not. God sends us things to get us through. The one's new in the morning. Great is your trust. All these things are new in the morning. Every day we have the mercies and the charities, the things from God. The Lord is my portion, said my soul. On account of this, I will, it says, I will wait for him, but it also could be, I will await him. 24, it says here, my soul. Who is the my soul? The Lord is my portion, and said my soul, again, probably Jeremiah. The Lord is good to the ones waiting him, or awaiting him, a soul which shall seek him. So the Lord is good to the ones, if we are waiting, and Jesus had remain, meno, which is part of this, ipomeno, remain or have patience on the Lord, and seek him when we go through these hard times as Jeremiah is going through. We can have all sorts of problems and every day and look at things. A lot of times it's our own fault. Like for me today, I've been watching all this news, bad stuff going on between the Democrats and the Republicans. It puts me in a terrible mood. And why am I watching this, especially when I'm doing the video seminar tonight? It just makes it harder. I should ignore some of these things and just wait on the Lord. It is good, and he shall wait and be still for the deliverance of the Lord. Deliverance, salvation in the King James. For it is good for a man whenever he should lift a yoke from out of his youth and basically work. It's good to work. He will sit down alone and he will keep silent, for he lifted it upon himself. You're able to be self-sufficient is a good thing, that Jeremiah is saying. That for that person that's seeking the Lord, awaiting the Lord, remaining with the Lord, and doing his work, and being faithful to him, taking care of himself and his family, he shall put his mouth in dust, if perhaps there is hope. No, I'm not exactly on putting your mouth in the dust. I'm not exactly sure on that one, what that might be, some idiom the Hebrew has that we don't understand or I don't understand. He will give his cheek to the one hitting him. That reminds me of Jesus. But Jeremiah also was struck when he was arrested by the Jews when he went out of Jerusalem. And he was arrested, and it says they struck him. And he will be filled with scornings. People scorn Jeremiah. And here he has nothing but the things from God to tell them. Of course, they didn't want to hear these things. For not into the eon shall the Lord thrust away. And that's good to know. But the Lord does thrust away, but he does not want to do that, but he uses it if he has to. But it won't be in the eon, it won't be forever and ever. The Lord has mercy. For the one he humbled, he shall pity, according to the multitude of his mercy. He was not answered from his heart, and he humbled sons of man. He answered not from his heart, and he humbled sons of man. Well, humbling the sons of man, but answered not from his heart. Now, I'm not exactly sure whose heart, his heart, God's heart, or man's heart. He humbled the sons of man. Maybe the man's heart didn't respond, but yet he humbled him, I'm not sure. To humble under his feet all the prisoners of the earth. To humble all the ones that don't believe in God. Basically, they're doing things on their own without acknowledgement to God. Then they're actually a prisoner of the evil one. And mentions that in the New Testament more than the Old. To turn aside a judgment of a man over against the face of the highest. So to humble, he humbles people, even if it was he was doing something that was apparently okay by the world standards, the way I see it here, but not if it was against God, then that's a different aspect. To condemn mankind in the judging him, the Lord spoke not. So here we have all this to condemn mankind, turning aside a judgment in these things of man. The Lord does not like that. Well, who thus spoke, who thus spoke and it came to pass, but the Lord did not give charge? Well, nothing. I firmly believe that everything is in God's charge. Everything that we do, all the things that happen to us, God is in control. Now, somebody says, well, does that mean we don't have free will? And I say, no, we do have free will, but our free will is very, very limited. Basically, the free will we have is to either follow God or to reject God. But once we follow God, all the things that happen to us are charged, they're taking place under God's control. And if we ignore God, and our free will does that, then all the things that come against us, God has allowed to happen. He's in charge. From out of the mouth of the highest shall there not come forth bad and good? Why does a living man grumble, a man concerning his sin? Well, yeah, if you're sinning, then you can expect things bad to happen. Our way was searched out and examined. Now, I believe here it's talking about Israel is our way in the plural. And examine, we should turn unto the Lord. We should lift up our hands. We should lift up our hearts upon our hands. Being upon our hands down on the ground, I believe what it's talking about, not with our hands, which I put years ago, and I did a lot of this translation, and epi is upon. We should lift up our hearts upon our hands to the height in heaven. That's God. We sinned. We were impious, and you atoned not. The atonement was no longer available to Israel. They had their temple destroyed. The priesthood was separated from Jerusalem. There was no atoning because of those two things that had happened. But we have an atonement, and that is through Jesus Christ. That's when the atonement came back basically to the Jews, although they did have a temple for a short while, Herod's temple. When they came back from Nebuchadnezzar until Herod's time, they rebuilt the temple. Exactly the difference between the temple of Ezra and Nehemiah and the temple of Herod, I don't know. I have to study that, but it would be interesting to see how it changed. I know Herod's temple was made out of large stones, which I don't think had happened yet with Ezra and Nehemiah's temple. You enveloped in rage and banished us. That was Israel. You killed and spared not. You enveloped yourself with a cloud because of prayer to close my eyelids. So here, all these is Israel and Jeremiah. And to be thrust away, you put us, Israel, in the midst of the peoples in Babylon. All our enemies opened wide against their mouth against us. And the neighbors, Edom, Moab, all these people, were happy to see the destruction of Israel. Phobos, fear, phobia, fear and stupefaction was to us. Stupefaction, don't know what to do. Haughtiness and destruction. My eyes shall lead down releases of waters upon the destruction of the daughter of my people. Leading down releases of waters is crying, weeping over the destruction of Israel. My eye was swallowed down, and I shall not be quiet. When that's an allegory, there was a figure of speech. The eye wasn't really swallowed down, but using that, either he didn't see or he didn't want to see. And I shall not be quiet, to not be sober, until of which time the Lord should look through and should behold from out of heaven. So the future redemption of God. My eye shall glean upon my soul because of all the daughters of the city. When every destruction is around us, we have to look and see if it was something that we did or I did. In hunting, my enemies hunted me as a sparrow freely. They put to death my life in the pit, and they placed a stone upon me. Jeremiah 37:16, it says, and Jeremiah came into the house of the pit and into the confinement and stayed there many days. And so he was taken to the pit, and then it says, and they took Jeremiah and tossed him in the pit of Malchiah, son of the king, which was in the courtyard of the guard. And they let him down with rough cords into the pit. And in the pit there was not water, but only mire, and he was in the mire. Jeremiah 38:6 and 7. Water overflowed upon my head, but there was not water in this one. And he's talking about it, so I don't know. I said, I am thrust away. I called upon your name, O Lord, from out of the lowermost pit. My voice you heard. He heard it by Obed-Melech, the Ethiopian eunuch, who went to the king and had people come and take Jeremiah out of the pit. My voice you heard. You should not hide your ears to my supplication. And if you're in the pit, horrible things and everything is bad, the best thing to do is to cry out to God. God, here, I'm down here in this pit. Help, get me out of here. Please, please, please. A supplication. You should not hide your ears to my supplication. You approached for my help in a day in which I called upon you. You said to me, do not fear. So I would say, ask the same prayer would be for you if you believe you are in the pit, crying out to God. Do not fear. God will answer. You educated, made a judgment, O Lord, the punishments of my soul. You ransomed my life. So the idea of the being like punished, put into jail, or captured by the enemy, but the ransoming was by God and freed you from whatever was holding whatever is holding you or a person. You saw, O Lord, my disturbances. You judged my case. You beheld all their vengeance and all their devices against me. And when Jeremiah was arrested, when leaving Jerusalem in Jeremiah 37:15, the people said that he was fleeing to the enemy, and so they arrested him and beat him and took him to the king. And then in Jeremiah 38:17, taken out, he was taken to the king, and when he was leaving Zedekiah, when he told the king of what was going to happen, the king told him not to say anything to the enemies, and when they came out, they wanted to catch Jeremiah and do damage to him, but the king said to say a certain thing, and they believed. So the devices of man was against him, maybe against you or us. You heard their scorning, all their devices against me. The lips of ones rising up against me, and their meditations against me the entire day. I look at the judge that apparently, I don't know the man, I just seen he had 30 years of service and a track record which is clean as a whistle, but yet the one political party in the United States is throwing everything that they possibly can against this untarnished man. And it's almost could be like here, their meditations against me the entire day. Too bad they don't read Lamentations. They're sitting down and they're rising up. Everything. Look upon their eyes. You shall recompense to them a recompense, O Lord, according to the works of their hands. A reward is for doing good, and a punishment is for doing bad. A recompense can be either one. It depends on the actions according to the works of their hands. If they're good, then you get something good in return. If they're bad, you get something bad in return. You shall recompense to them while shielding the trouble of my heart. Here it sounds like their recompense to them is going to be bad. You shall pursue them in anger, and shall completely consume them beneath the heaven, O Lord. So the idea then of the recompense to the ones that are doing evil to others that don't deserve it, God would stop it and free these people from this, these people coming against them, or a group of people. Next chapter, chapter 4, the rage of the Lord is completed. Hallelujah. We'll go into that and find out how that is completed. Our next video seminar, and I hope you'll join us, and God bless.